It's Gordon Korman's greatest hits in a single book. Hi everyone, I'm Jacob, I'm the Cowhat Librarian, and I'm here to talk today about a fairly new book by one of my all-time favorite authors. It's Unplugged by Gordon Korman. I read my first Gordon Korman book back when I was in elementary school. I picked up a copy of Go Jump in the Pool from our local book fair, and I've been hooked on his stuff pretty much ever since. So it was a real treat to go back to a new story by him. And this one's quite good. Jet is the son of an inventor who has invented the most indisputable tech company in the world. If you combine Amazon and Facebook and perhaps Microsoft as well, that's about as big as his father's tech company is. And Jet doesn't deal very well with having that much wealth and fame and notoriety. And so his father sends him off with an employee to be his caretaker of sorts, even though this employee is quite a talented coder and could be perhaps more useful actually working at the company instead of babysitting Jet. So in response to all of Jet's nonsense, Jet's father sends him and his employee slash caretaker to the Oasis, an unplugged retreat of sorts, where people eat vegetarian meals, commune with nature, do yoga, and in general treat it as a retreat from modern society. Obviously, Jet wants none of this. He hates it from first glance and plots various ways to escape immediately, or at least push things far enough that he'll be kicked out. He sneakily gets a hold of a phone, which isn't supposed to happen. Phones are supposed to be handed in when they attend this retreat, and uses a credit card available to him to order things like arcade machines and jet skis to be delivered to this retreat. And his babysitter, father's employee, gets wind of it and returns all the things, of course. Meanwhile, some of the other campers there are sort of drawn to Jet for one reason or another. One of them has parents who've been coming to the Oasis for years and years and years, and she's bought into the idea of the health and wellness of it and is a true believer in it. A boy there is allergic to everything in the world and isn't really happy being there and doesn't understand why his family drags him there, but he's drawn to Jet too because he's actively doing something about it. He's not a passive participant. At any rate, the three of them get tangled up with another supposed camper whose relation to the Oasis is a little odd, and a baby lizard they find that the four of them bond over taking care of. And that tiny little thing, that little lizard named Needles, that they start taking care of is enough for them to form an odd friendship and to sort of survive the Oasis in a more comfortable way. But things start getting weird. There's a town nearby with an enormous mansion owned by a mysterious person. These kids' parents continue coming back year after year after year to this place when the benefits of doing so aren't really clear to all of the kids. And no matter what he tries, Jet can't be kicked out from the place. And it was a lot of fun. Korman's more recent books, where he speaks from the viewpoints of many different characters, they're fun because of all the different perspectives. But in my opinion, they've also gotten a little overblown. I like hearing about the story from one or two characters, maybe three. Once there are a half dozen different characters, sometimes it's hard to leave things in the middle of a chapter, because if I pick the book up again later on, I don't remember whose point of view it's happening from, and it takes a brief moment to figure out who it is and reacclimatize myself with how they're thinking about things at that stage of the book. And with fewer characters to focus on, that really helped Unplugged story move along quite briskly. So, if you've got anyone who would like stories about people who like escaping situations they're not happy in, or who take calls to unplug from the electronics and social media in their life as kind of a personal insult, or for any Gordon Korman fans, either present or lapsed, I'd highly encourage them to give Unplugged a try. I really do recommend it. Now, with that said, I do have to talk about the one or two things I noticed that I consider to be possible deal breakers. So, while I mentioned that I love this book and that I see it as Gordon Korman's greatest hits in a single book, I don't mean it in an entirely complimentary way. In some ways, this book reminds me a lot of a watered-down version of Korman's previous book, I Want to Go Home, about Rudy Miller and his attempts to escape Camp Algonquin Island, where he's forced to spend the summer. Over the course of that book, he tries all sorts of pranks to get sent home, and escape attempts and attempts to flood the camp to get out of there, and his antics keep escalating and escalating, and his deadpan approach to everything was absolutely hilarious. In contrast, Jet's actions just don't seem as interesting. There's a line in this book where one of the characters says, "Don't worry, I never get caught," which is a clear throwback to Bruno from the Bruno and Boots series that Korman wrote previously. There are a few small elements of Korman's other works that make their way in here, but in some ways the whole is less than the sum of the parts. I really enjoyed this book, but I would rather reread a classic MacDonald Hall book with Bruno and Boots and I Want to Go Home than reread Unplugged. It was good, I enjoyed it, I recommend it, but it felt like a little bit of a pale imitation of some of the other things he did earlier in his career. Still, I recommend it. I recommend heading to your local library and borrowing it to give to the reader in your life, either your child or your student or a local patron. With that, thanks for joining me. If you liked this video, please hit the like button, and please check out what else I have to talk about from the Cowhat Library. Thanks everyone. Bye now.